Hello and good day. So, what is the value of debt? Today I would like to talk about the potential reasons to have debt and the various and clarify the what is debt to people and to explain the value and use of debt to hopefully make one more aware of just debt in general and liabilities. So, first off, what is debt? Well, debt is when you owe something and you haven't, in one way or another, paid it back. Whether that be when you have a credit card and you purchase an object and you'll pay it back or should pay it back later, or you take out a loan for a house or a car, or even just smaller debt of you owe somebody for a favor they did you, which is a little less financial and a little more personal. However, in general, it is when you owe something that you will eventually, hopefully, pay back. And oftentimes, if you don't, you'll end up hurting more than if you just managed to pay it back in the first place. Otherwise, when used in the calculation to figure out one's assets or net worth, it would be assets minus liabilities, or what you have versus what you owe, and that would be your net worth. So, the quick answer to what is the value of debt is the debt is a negative value. The more debt you have, the less valuable your assets and the more risky your situation and financial situation is. So, why might somebody go ahead and have debt? If it is a large purchase, they might not want to wait or save up to buy something such as a house or a car, or if they want to use it for convenience, such as credit cards rather than a debit card, they might try to pay it back at the end of the month, or for whatever reason they didn't have enough to pay now and they hope to have enough to pay later, is the general idea. However, of course, not only to compensate for the risk, but to compensate for time and lost value, usually debt has interest. And that interest is usually to the point where the person who is offering that debt, usually the bank, will profit. So, generally speaking, you having debt means you're paying somebody else not only what you paid for the product, but the actual loaning of the money. You're paying them specifically for that capital. And that is a liability in itself. By having interest working against you, you are not only in a risky situation of eventually you're basically in the reverse situation of financial freedom. Because financial freedom is the ability to live the lifestyle one desires without having to do anything they don't want to do, by sectioning off their time for work or for whatever project to make monetary gain. However, that is usually achieved by having passive income and investments that will produce passive income. Which, of course, if you have debt, even if you make money passively, just by passively owing somebody money, you are losing income as well. And just like compound interest works well investing, compound interest works just as well to whoever is owing you money or you owe them money, so loaning you money. In case I haven't made it clear, in an individual terms, when you buy a house you will live in, when you buy a car, when you buy groceries, generally speaking, a loan and going into debt is a bad idea. Whether you can run the numbers and make it so you get out ahead one way or another, say trying to take advantage of credit cards, even though their entire business is purposed around you taking advantage of you, and the bank's entire purpose is to make money off of you, which doesn't necessarily mean they're out to harm you, but rather they're a business. They keep your money safe, and they also provide you capital you don't have should you need it for whatever reason. However, unfortunately, a large quantity of people don't understand that that's only an emergency that usually, preferably, you can put off at all cost. It's like maybe if you're buying an asset, like let's put it this way, if you're purchasing assets and you get a loan for however much for 4% interest annually, and you use that to invest, well, you should be able to make more than 4% investing. And if you're not, then you are either thinking short term and are in a bad market in some way, or you are choosing bad investments and should learn how to better choose more valuable companies and or mutual funds and or what other term of investment you are investing in, including investing in the bank, making 0.05 or maybe for a CD 0.85% or whatever it may be. I would recommend that you would stay away from debt during personal points and financial situations, since you are in effect slave to the lender. If they come after you, you truly do owe them. So if you are not careful, and especially if you do not know the risks and the effective, basically what you are subjecting yourself to, the potential risks of what could happen and what could randomly happen, and not setting enough room for that. And usually if you can already do that, there is no reason to go into debt. For one way or another, you have hopefully you can set up an emergency fund that would first start off with say $1,000 for any small emergencies, and then pay off or get rid of any debt, and then 3 to 6 months developing your emergency fund to cover those lengths of expenses should you need to, and only specifically use those for emergencies. And with that, any $150 purchase for a repair for a car would not immediately send you into danger or cost you more than it truly needs to cost you. And the actual value of a debt is harming you. Your income, your most powerful investing and savings tool, is being, at least in part, sent over to somebody else. And if it's not in full, then what reason did you have to go into debt in the first place? I'll talk in another video about a more smaller debt that you pay off in short term, such as credit cards. I'll talk about the actual potential risks and gain that you can hopefully, or at least what you think you can get out of doing such things. Now, to talk about a more business or more self-employment methods, such as real estate and mortgages, and just running your own business and taking out loans to pay off or expand whatever it is you need to do. Those can be okay, but often, which by leveraging your money in one way or another, you can do well. But it's the same thing with risk. With reward comes risk. And quite frankly, if you owe somebody money, then they have a leg up on a head start, an advantage over you in being able to get their money and fair share of whatever it is you owe them. If you have, going back to the previous statement of, if you only have a 4% annual interest for your loan, why not invest that and make more? Sometimes in a business you will be doing well and sometimes you will be doing poorly. And even if in the long term you're going to constantly be going up and making more money, in the short term, if multiple things happen, you could end up being forced to end up collapsing the business, end up collapsing the situation where everyone wants you to pay your debt immediately and you don't have enough liquid assets to cover everything, and you might end up having to sell at a low time and lose everything. Basically, as you can understand, the risk to owning debt versus the freedom of being debt-free, the value of debt is not worth it in the vast majority of situations that I can think of. However, that does not mean that buying a house or going to school for student loans kind of thing is necessarily impossible. You can still effectively pay those off, be saving up beforehand, buying the house all at once, or in part, your costs will go down because you don't have to pay interest. And your desire for the object should hold more true because you had to work for it and save it up and prepare. And your efforts should be greater, which hopefully, if you're in debt, you would be working enough to quickly try to get out of that debt and solve any risk that you may have. However, that is not always the case, and it can be pretty despairing if you have significantly more owed than you own, especially when you're a young student who just graduated and are not able to quickly get a career along the lines of what you educated yourself in. But to sum it up, I don't think debt is needed or safe, and generally if you can avoid it, then that is a significant advantage towards moving towards being financially free and achieving your financial freedom. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And if you like to hear more of this content, then feel free to subscribe for notifications, and have a good day.